Well, good morning, everyone. We have a quorum, so with everyone's okay, we'll get started.
Right.
Good morning. A call to order. I got to do an official roll call. Steve Bacon, not here. Rachel Finch, not here. Pam Lewis,
Here.
Mary Pierce, absent. Bob Ravenar,
Here.
Megan Weisinger,
Here.
and Rich Buckner's here. And that gives us a quorum. Resolutions, I'll entertain a motion to approve resolution 2020-107, a resolution declaring that the Civil War Historic Commission shall meet on June 23rd, 2020, and conduct its essential business by electronic means rather than being required to gather a quorum of the members physically present at the same location because it is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans in light of the COVID-19 outbreak. Do I hear a motion?
So moved. Pam Lewis.
Second, Bob Ravener.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for joining us.
Steve, we just did a roll
Hi,
call.
Amanda.
Steve, are you present?
Hey,
Steve,
Steve.
turn off your mute, please.
Morning.
Are you present, Steve?
I am.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, Steve.
Morning.
Hey, Mary.
Mary Pierce, good morning. Please turn off your mute, please. Mary.
Unmute. Am I
Mary,
there?
we're doing a roll call. Are you present?
I'm present, sort of.
Thank you. Okay. I don't see Rachel, so we just had a motion and a second on the resolutions, and so I'm going to do a roll call vote on that. This is to approve that we meet electronically as opposed to meeting in person. Steve Bacon, A or no? Turn
Hey.
off your, what, Steve?
Hey. Yes.
Rachel Finch, not present. Pam Lewis,
Yay.
Mary Pierce,
Yes.
Bob Ravener,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
and Rich Buckner, yes. I have an announcement for limited public access. Due to the COVID-19 outbreak, this meeting will be a virtual meeting. The public may call 615-550-8434 to listen to the meeting and make comments during the public comment period. The public may also email comments to planning.take@franklin10.gov to read aloud during the meeting. Email comments will be accepted until 1 hour prior to the meeting. The meeting video will be available for public viewing 24 hours following the meeting on the City of Franklin YouTube account. Kelly, do we have any questions?
We do not have anyone on the line.
And nothing came in by email. Okay, thank you. With all that done, we can go on to the agenda. We wanted to, this meeting, what we want to do is we want to talk about three different parts. First is kind of an overview. Now we're starting to move into the central core of the historic district, which is basically inside Mac Hatcher. We've come inside Mac Hatcher on the previous of our runs, but we haven't gone deep into downtown. But before we did that, Amanda and I talked, and we thought we'd want to kind of discuss a little bit of the process. We did a questionnaire and we got your responses on that, and they were great. The biggest thing I wanted to talk about is, as we move forward, there's a philosophy really of this committee about how we designate sites to avoid having cluttered signs. We've all talked for the last year or so about the fact that if a sign has too many different wayfinding spots on it, that it becomes cluttered and it's hard to read as you're driving. So we wanted to try to keep the signs as minimalistic as we can, but yet very informative. And what we came up with was an idea to where we had really one major site, and that was historic Franklin, or the historic core, historic district. And we decided to keep that outside of Mac Hatcher. So the signs, instead of starting to identify all kinds of different sites outside of Mac Hatcher, we've consistently designated just historic district as the nomenclature outside. Now that we're inside of the historic district, we have to deal with the same type of thing. And we came up with a primary and an ancillary type idea for the sites. The primary sites being those that we would always identify because we think those are the sites that people come to Franklin, historically come to Franklin to see. And then the ancillary sites would be the other sites that, as you're traveling along the route, if there's an ancillary site in close proximity to the route you're on, then we would identify it. And I sent out a little map the last time, and I identified what we were thinking. The Visitor Center, Carter House, Lotes House, and Carnton are the primary sites. And then the ancillary sites are Fort Granger, the Masonic Temple, the Macklemore House, Winstead Hill, and perhaps the cemeteries. And the idea with the ancillary sites, we're going to talk about 96 today. So when you get to Eddy Lane, there isn't a designation for Fort Granger until you get to Eddy Lane. But then at Eddy Lane, because that's the point where you should be turning right, that's where you start identifying Fort Granger. So does everybody understand that concept of primary and ancillary? I think it's important to keep our signs as minimalistic as we can, but yet informative. Are there any discussion or questions or thoughts on that? Mary,
You're muted.
Mary, unmute yourself, please.
I don't disagree with that. I think we may need to think of wording when you're going to a public meeting that works a little better than ancillary. So what we're really saying, I think, is ones, I just think we need to think about that, of the words to use, because to say that, for example, have you got the Lotes House as primary?
Yes.
And then you've got the Macklemore House as ancillary.
Yes.
So I think we might just want to think of how we want to use those words.
Well, I'm not sure we would use those words very often.
Yeah. If we don't use them publicly, I mean, I'm not questioning the breakdown. I'm questioning how we're referring to them.
I
But if we're-
agree with Mary. I think it's really important, and this is a public meeting, and this is, going to be put on a public accessible website. And I don't want anyone to think that by any means that those types of words mean that there's any lesser importance, because that's not true. That's absolutely not true.
Well, ancillary, I think, means that.
Right. And so I think we need to reconsider that. And I don't think that's exactly what Rich meant. So hopefully,
No, I don't either.
have that.
Yeah, we've kind of struggled with what to use. It certainly wasn't secondary.
Yeah.
Because we
I
didn't
just
want
wanted to
that.
say that for the record, because I don't want anyone to watch this meeting and get that impression, because that at least speaking for the city's perspective, that is not true by any means.
Right. And I think that by the time this gets done, the Macklemore House before the corona was being open fairly consistently for consistent days. So if that's what you're judging it by the time this gets done, I have a feeling that that it would be on the list with the other house museums. So I'm just asking some thought about that. And then just for the investment people have made, if we can come up with another word.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know that there's any basis on that other than the interstate signs identify the Lotes House, the Carter House, and Carnton.
Right.
And so that kind of
They
projected them
paid
up to that position.
They pay to be on those signs. And that's something, now that you say that, I think I should take that to the Macklemore House to talk about paying to be on that sign.
That's an excellent idea.
I
And
think
I think
so.
that that's a good point to make publicly, is
Mhm.
that those are on that sign for a reason. It's not that we've, as a city, chosen
They
to
weren't prioritized.
those.
They
Yeah,
pay.
right.
Yeah, we're trying to get beyond the, you know, the financial side of it or the political side of it, and just deal with where the public is and how they're accessing.
Well, if we
this.
judge it by the signs, we're dealing with the financial part of it.
Well, I'm thinking about people that are visiting here and what they know from the travel books and things like that.
So would it be an appropriate time, Rich, for us to introduce our guests today?
Yeah. Let me make one more. No, I think it is time. The other thing we wanted to talk about, I'm going through my notes here. The other thing I wanted to discuss before we got into the route itself was we've been continually working on this story map. Is that the right terminology, Amanda?
Yes.
A story map that's going to be really our way of designating what the committee has come up with. And so Amanda has invited some distinguished people here that you see on the screen that aren't normally in our meetings to discuss that. And so go ahead, Amanda, if you want to introduce them.
Sure. So we have joining us today from our GIS department here at the City of Franklin, Andrew Southern and Annabelle Dempsey. I'll let them introduce themselves a little bit too, but they have been very kind to be working with the planning department and, you know, in turn, the Civil War Historical Commission, and volunteering their expertise in facilitating a story map that would illustrate the locations that the wayfinding subcommittee has discussed for potential placement of new signs, and the location of proposed signs, I'm sorry, not proposed signs, but existing signs that relate to this project, and the resurfacing of those signs with new information. So I will go ahead and turn it over to Andrew and Annabelle and let them kind of explain how that story map works and illustrate how it's evolved so far, and let you ask any questions about how it can illustrate that information in a graphical way, so we can relay that to our citizens and to our Board of Mayor and Aldermen. All right, Andrew, we can't hear you. So while he's working on that, I will say that the map is a program that I've worked with for a little while, and Andrew showed me some of the ropes on. Kelly Gibson, who is a planner in our department, as you guys know, has worked with it as well. And it's a really interesting tool, and hopefully we'll be able to find some ways to integrate it into different facets of our planning projects as we move forward. All right, Andrew, thanks. You there?
It's really a neat tool. I've gone through it. It's really graphically real easy to see and understand. So it works well.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Now I got an echo as well. Anyway, I apologize about that. I had my microphone set to the wrong setting. But yeah, I appreciate the introduction, Amanda. As you said, my name is Andrew Southern. I work for the city's GIS department. And alongside, I have Annabelle here as well. And she is our intern here with the City of Franklin's GIS department. And she's been kind enough to help us out on this project as well. Essentially what we've done, and Amanda, you've kind of already explained the gist of it, is basically just take kind of an existing inventory or an inventory of our existing signage in the city and combine that with a layer, which is basically proposed signage or kind of, places where signage may be useful for people coming into the city of Franklin, which, obviously you guys know a lot more about that type of stuff than we do. But a story map essentially is a web-based GIS solution for displaying a series of maps. So if you look at the story map, it'll kind of show you just the primary corridors into the downtown core area and the existing signage along those corridors, as well as sites for potential new signs or resurfacing of existing signs, that sort of thing.
And Andrew, I should share that. I haven't shared the link with anyone but Rich, so they haven't seen it. So you'll be debuting it for them.
Okay. Do you want me to go ahead and just share my screen?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure, no problem. Let me get this out of the way.
I thought you should wow them with it since you're the one that helped make it.
Let's see. All right. Just let me know if you guys can see that, okay?
I'm wowed by the fact you know how to share the screen.
So am I, actually. I don't use Zoom very often. I use Teams at the office, so I'm a little bit out of my element here with Zoom. But so
Everyone see the screen?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So we started kind of with these main corridor areas. So this is Murfreesboro Road running east to west, and each one of the orange dots, it indicates an existing sign that kind of relates to some sort of historic wayfinding information. So if you click on a point, it'll give you, the street name and then also the kind of the details of what is currently on the sign. And some of them have photos. About a year or so ago, our previous intern, he went out and kind of, he took photos of several of these signs. So if you click on a sign, it might show you what that sign actually looks like. So the blue signs indicate, or the blue points, I should say, indicate sites that Amanda has kind of suggested or wanted to kind of place on the map as maybe a potential sign for the future. So if you click on it, it'll give you basically just the description of kind of what that points or what that sign might say. So, some kind of rough verbiage for that. So if you click on each different tab at the top, it'll take you to the same the same view for just the different corridors. And also we have the historic sites. There's a polygon for each one of the historic sites as well on each of these maps. So just for reference sake, I think. So like I said, each one of these is just a different corridor, and you can kind of navigate around them however you feel, and just explore. And then also, if I can move this screen out of my way, let's see.
You can move the people by dragging dragging the black bar above the top person.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay.
So there's a tab at the very end also for all corridors. So we thought it was kind of, useful to have everything all together in one area as well, so that if you look at an intersection, for instance, like Matt Catcher and for Murfreesboro Road here, you can see kind of the different signs from all directions, not just the direction of travel that you're, that not just one direction of travel, I guess I should say.
Right.
But that's kind of the gist of it. And basically, anything that needs to be added to this or edited or anything like that, we're happy to help. But this is all publicly available. I can share the link so it can be shared amongst you all here in this committee meeting, or anybody with the public that you'd like to share it with. So it's something that is available to us at the city. This is stuff that we work in GIS on a daily basis. So it's no additional cost to the city or anything like that. So it's a handy tool, I think, and I hope that it helps you guys with your decision making. And I think it's the primary benefit of it is being able to better kind of paint the picture of what you're trying to convey to your audience, rather than just speaking or typing it out in text or something like that. It's a visual aid more than anything.
So Andrew, in your experience having used this and presented on it at national conferences, the benefit of providing like the screen like you have shared right now would be that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen could see very easily the blue dots indicating this is where hopefully if the wayfinding subcommittee shares this with the commission and the commission votes to recommends to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, the aldermen can see this is where the commission recommends that new signs all go. And perhaps there's like a phasing scheme introduced where, we focus on different corridors or different intersections of major corridors.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, it's the visual aid, I think, is the primary benefit of something like this when you're going in front of a committee or going in front of BOMA. It's just a better way of conveying your message, and it looks good. It has its purpose. I think it does an adequate job. So yeah, absolutely. I think that's definitely the case.
And for the commission members, the committee members rather, that worked on this, I hope that you guys can see all the hard work you've been doing over the last year. See all these dots?
A lot of dots.
Those are all signs
Right.
that you've evaluated. So it's very cool to see that visual, effort that you put into this instead of just, going to meeting, like seeing it visually is very satisfying.
Yeah, I want to commend the whole committee. It's been quite an exercise and quite an endeavor. And this is the fruit of our labor. I prepared these little maps and everything else, which were not professional at all. And this has a very professional appearance. And I think it leads us a long way toward making a presentation to both the commission and to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, and beyond that, with just directions and identity of what the program is and where it should go and how it should be laid out. So it's a real aid to what we've been working on.
Well, Annabelle had worked pretty diligently on adding notes that I provided to her. Annabelle, do you want to provide any feedback on the project?
I think Andrew covered it pretty well. I mean, making the map is fairly straightforward.
We appreciate all the work you've done on it. Thank you so much for your help on it.
Thank you. I always like a good challenge, a good project to work on.
It's the fruit of your labor is very visible. It's excellent. So.
All right, does anyone have any questions for Andrew or for Annabelle? I know that the committee members haven't really had a chance to explore the map. I didn't want to roll it out until there were some things that Andrew had changed at our request, and I wanted to debut that here today. So I'll send a link out and allow everyone to kind of check it out. And, we can talk about it again the next time we meet. But are there any general questions just as you've encountered it right now? I have the experts here, so I'm not able to answer certain questions about how to implement different things or how to edit content more than just the basic information that can be input. But Andrew and Annabelle might be able to answer those since they're here.
I have a question. Our process to reach Andrew and Annabelle is through you, Amanda, right?
Yes.
So if you have comments or questions, send them to Amanda, and then Amanda will convey those to Andrew and Annabelle and their team.
So if you're evaluating the map, you're looking through, especially the blue dots and also the existing signs and the notes listed on the existing signs, and you think there's any error, it may be because there's a discrepancy between how I noted or understood the discussion of the committee as it was being discussed. So that doesn't mean it can't be changed. We can certainly go back and have a discussion on that sign or compare our notes. It's as easy as going in and changing words. It's very simple. So this is just a collection of my notes, and I am not guaranteeing that they are 100% accurate. So that's why it's nice to be able to share this with everyone. It's sort of like a SharePoint type collection that we can make sure that everybody is on the same page about how we are moving forward and collecting notes. It's another benefit of providing our or collecting our data in this way.
This is just a question I'm curious about. So can this now be overlaid like on a street planning map, or does this information sit in a silo?
No, it could be integrated with, if you just wanted a simple street map with these points as well, something besides just an aerial imagery. We could definitely do that, and I could even include it in each map, basically the ability to toggle it from between one or the other. So you can toggle it between an aerial image and just a regular street map.
Okay. Okay.
Good question.
Be made into a GIS layer itself that we implement on, like in the zoning map, for instance.
Yeah, did you say, is it a GIS layer, just an individual layer?
Could it be if we wanted it to be?
It effectively is already. It's behind the scenes, everything is structured the same as any other kind of GIS layer that you would use on a daily basis in your job. So yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
It's done through ArcGIS as well. Okay, great.
Right. It's just a web-based version of kind of what is more traditionally thought of as in GIS, which is more just on a kind of enterprise database level. This is all just web-based, so it's easy to share with people like this committee and BOMA and whoever else needs to see it, rather than having to have the desktop software. You just need a web browser.
Okay, great. I'm already getting some ideas churning here about like a
Very good.
comprehensive historic map. I'm sorry, Rich.
I said, very good. This is excellent. It's impressive as to all the work we've done. So
Rich, you'd asked me about the symbology and if there's a way to identify the symbology by like adding 1, 2, 3 on top of them to help prioritize. Did you want to ask about that further?
well, somewhere down the road this year, perhaps early next year, we will have a step to where we will be putting priorities on the signs. And I'm thinking ahead to like a 1, 2, and 3 priority, so that we can tell the commission and then we can tell BOMA that this is our number 1 priority signs. This is where we think signs are needed on a first, and then a secondary priority and a third along the line for budgetary purposes, should we have to do that. And what I was asking Amanda, if the symbology, if there's some way of identifying potentially the blue signs as being either a 1, 2, or 3 priority. And I didn't know if that was shading on color or if that was a small number next to it, which gets cluttered, or what.
I would probably go the route of if you were able to prioritize all of the blue signs in whatever category that you want, or whatever 1, 2, 3, whatever it may be. Basically, we would just add that prioritization or that categorization to all of the blue signs, and then we'll have maybe a button at the top right or somewhere on the screen that you could just click and say, just show me the level 1 priorities, or just show me the level 2, or whatever the case may be. I think rather than changing the symbology and making it, sometimes maps can get really busy if you start to throw around a lot of different symbology for, especially if it's really for, a single layer, but it's, you're symbolizing off of more than one attribute. I think it would be better to just be able to kind of just turn them on and off at your discretion. I think would probably be the way we would go.
Okay.
That's a good idea. Thank you for that. Kelly, do you have any questions? Either Kelly?
I do not.
Okay.
No, this map is fabulous in what it displays and portrays, and all the work that y'all have done over the past year. Great job, everybody.
It looks fantastic.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you guys for inviting us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew and Annabelle. I appreciate it.
Well, you can stay and join us for the rest of the meeting if you'd like, but we're going to hop off this topic and move on to discussing the central core, where it's really going to get heavy with symbology.
Sounds good. All right, you guys have a good day. Thank you again for the invitation. And if y'all need anything, like you said, just reach out to Amanda, and we'd be happy to help you in any way that we can.
Thank you.
All right.
Andrew, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Rich.
All right.
Okay, moving forward. Now and I think that was a good segue into where we're going, because you saw on that map all the work we've done outside the central core. It's going to be that many points and maybe more inside the Mac Hatcher. So it's there's the number of signs and the intensity of all this is going to grow from here on. We've kind of thought the best way to approach inside of Mac Hatcher is to continue on as we have in the past with each route and talking about it on a route type basis. And I sent out I sent Amanda a map that I worked on, and I hope that works well for us as we kind of think our way through this. Amanda, if you want to, I don't know how to share a screen, but if you want to.
I can go ahead and share that. And I did send it to everyone ahead of time, so I do hope that you had a chance to be able to look at that beforehand. So I do know sometimes it is difficult to follow along.
Let me give you a little bit of a layout on this. And with everyone's okay, I'm going to continue to use this kind of graphics as we talk about central core. But the red dashed line is the road that we're on, that we're talking about. That's Highway 96 to the center core of the city. The red arrow that you see down in the lower right corner, that's the point at where we stopped coming in Highway 96. We got to Eddy Lane, and then we ended our discussion of 96. And so that's just a reference point so that everybody can recall where we were at that point.
And you'll notice on the story map, I've made a note that we still need to discuss that sign, because it was one that we stopped on, because we still had some questions on it.
And then I put a a color designation, and I've laid out the colors in a way that each site has a different color. And so they will continually have the same color from whatever road we're on. But what I do off the main core, the red dash line, is a route such as Fort Granger. You see the orange line going up to Fort Granger. Then I've designated the parking area for Fort Granger, as well as the location of Fort Granger with a color star. And then I've got the same thing for Carnton with the blue, the light blue, for Carter House and Lotes House with the green. Actually, Lotes has a lighter green, but you know, those are both there. The visitor center with darker blue, and in this particular case, the Masonic Hall with yellow. And so basically you're coming in on 96, and then as you peel off to go to one of those sites, I've labeled that corridor. The brown squares with the letters on them are the existing signs that exist today. And those are coded to, on the following page, on the pages after this, actual pictures of those signs. And so you can see the A sign, the B sign, the C sign, and that type of thing as we go through. Now we can discuss, as with all of these routes, they kind of blend together. If you go back to this, you'll notice that when we get to Carnton, we're on 96 and we're in the downtown core, but then we eventually end up on Lewisburg Pike. We in discussion can end our discussion anywhere we want to go here, and then pick it up as we deal with Lewisburg Pike. Same thing with Columbia Avenue. You get to downtown and then you go left on the green line, and then you go left again to get on Columbia Avenue to head to Carter House and Lotes House. We can stop it at that point. I just wanted to follow it through for the purpose of this map. Does everyone think this map works well for us?
I think it's excellent. I think it's an incredible way to handle it, especially with the color coding and then using consistency with color coding moving forward.
Now, somebody's got a different, basically my routing is followed the routing of the signage that exists in downtown. If we think, I don't believe this is the case, but if we think there's a better route to Carter House or to Lotes House or to Carnton, we should discuss that. But I don't think there is, but you know, that's open for discussion as well.
Yeah, the only one I would like to discuss, and it's not that I disagree with you because I don't, but just because I think it would be the only one that might have a difference of opinion, would be the one to Carter and Lotes House. Does anyone have a difference of opinion on how that one might get to that location for 96?
What, am I unmuted?
Yes.
Okay, well, don't you think that it's worth talking about sending them straight down Main Street?
That's why I was wondering, like, if anyone had a question about it, and I thought Megan might have a question about that too. I'm sure Rich was thinking about traffic and thinking about, you know, the path of least resistance, and I agree this probably is the path of least resistance. You know, the only other route other than Main Street and then South Margin would be the one that he chose, which I think is.
Well, I didn't choose it. That's the way the signs direct people now.
Okay, that's a good point. Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. I thought you chose it when I thought it was a good choice. but South Margin is a difficult choice to make, and it's a residential area, and it's the first way into this part of Franklin from from Gnatcatcher. So it's definitely not a route to encourage, in my opinion.
Well,
I
the
would
corner,
agree with that.
the intersection with the E designation is a very dangerous intersection.
It is.
I think both the margin and 96 light is a problem, as is that going down margin, to your point, Rich, about that area right there. Both for pedestrians and for traffic, it's very confusing.
It is.
Now, to Mary's point, for Main Street, it would drive people to the historic core, the actual, like, literal core. And they would see, the very center of Franklin, some of the most historic buildings in Franklin, see the center of our commercial district in Franklin. If they were to go here, to kind of go in by the judicial area and the office residential area, and this is an offset intersection as well. So,
And you're not as direct a route, in my mind, to directing someone into the visitor center.
okay. Megan, what are your thoughts?
Still thinking. Come back to me.
Yeah, let me reiterate. I wasn't trying to persuade the committee to go in any direction. I just followed the signs as they
Right.
exist.
Right.
And
That's
we
That's
as
what I hear.
we as a subcommittee can suggest any change we want to suggest here.
Right.
So let's think big picture here.
And
I
thanks
like
for
where you're
reminding
going
me of
there,
that,
Mary.
because I thought, well, that's a good point. Like, that's a good choice. I just assumed that, it is a good choice as far as, the path of least resistance. Now, is it the best choice for,
Other things.
getting people to go past what, would be the best locations for highlighting our community? Maybe not. If I were to think about it this way, if you're inviting your family, your friends to Franklin, and you're trying to get them to the Carter House, what way would you tell them to go? I certainly wouldn't tell them to go down that direction. I think I would tell them to go down Main Street.
Well, that's what I think. I think sending them into more residential neighborhoods instead of the commercial area. And if we're trying to be an economic generator, I don't think it quite makes sense.
Another thing to keep in mind, and Mary, I like where you're thinking here, so don't misinterpret this.
I won't.
Bear in mind that we're going to be talking about Franklin Road coming in as well. And so that
Yes.
supports what you just said, because Franklin Road obviously comes right down Main Street.
And it comes past the factory.
Well, yeah, but when you get into the downtown core, as you're
Yeah.
directing people to
It
Carter
empties right
House,
in. Yeah.
they're going to be
Right.
coming right through there. And so there's a
That's right.
possibility of double using signs.
That's right. That's right.
Which could be, budgetarily more impactful for the city. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of that. I think it's key to get them into downtown Franklin first. So whenever I think about our visitors coming in, I do want to lead them, like everyone was saying, like towards Main Street, towards the visitor center. But I also stop and think about, if I'm traveling in, and I know that I know where I want to go. I know I want to go to the Carter House, or I know I want to go to Carnton. What's the quickest way for me to get there? So I wouldn't want to, I don't know how to say this. I like the fact that there are a couple of different routes to the houses because those are some of our most popular attractions. Our most popular attraction is downtown Main Street. So it does make total sense to get them down on there. But I'm wondering if we do need to have kind of alternative routes for those people who know where they want to go. I don't know.
Or if I'll argue the other side of that, Megan. If you know the specific place you want to go, have you probably put that on your phone or GPS anyway?
Mm-hmm.
That's just my thought because I
That would
hate to
negate the
get
reason for
too cluttered.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think we need to get rid of a lot of the clutter. I'm just kind of thinking on the other side of things for
Right. We need to think every direction.
The devil's advocate side of this, there's a lot of congestion on Main Street
Yeah.
There is.
when you're not in COVID-19.
Yeah, we haven't had that problem recently.
No, but prior to March of this year or late February of this year, there's a consistent lot of traffic on Main Street. I mean, getting around the square and down to Main Street, you can sit in quite a bit of traffic.
Right.
So that's something else to consider.
Yes.
So there may be an opportunity here where the subcommittee makes its primary recommendation and has a fallback secondary recommendation, because the this would need to be vetted. You know, if the BOMA wants to entertain it, it's likely that it'll take into consideration the recommendations of our traffic division of the engineering department, of course. And traffic engineering would want to make evaluations, the types of things that we're discussing right now, and they would be better able to do that than we are. So it may be that, you know, we make a recommendation to go down Main Street, or we make the primary recommendation to go down Church, one or the other, and then our fallback plan is the other. I don't think that traffic engineering would ever recommend South Margin.
Say that again, please, Amanda.
I don't think traffic engineering would ever recommend South Margin as a primary route right now.
For Carnt.
Right. If we're going to do new signs. I mean, that's just my opinion. I shouldn't say speak with any sort of certainty on that, but it's just my opinion.
Well, there is, okay, if you're coming in 96, at Mac Hatcher, we are directing everyone to turn left onto Mac Hatcher to go to Carnton.
Mm-hmm.
We can avoid showing directions to Carnton from 96 in the historic core. We certainly would have directions from Carter House to Carnton. And we would certainly have directions from Franklin Road to Carnton and from obviously Lewisburg Pike, but even from Columbia Avenue. But on 96, the route that we're suggesting everyone take to get to Carnton is Mac Hatcher.
That's true.
And so we can just not address Carnton again on 96, and then deal with addressing Carnton from perhaps the visitor center, or perhaps the certainly from Carter House. It's just food for thought.
Yeah.
Now, Megan, if someone were at the visitor center, they went to the visitor center from 96 using signs, and they learned about Carnton, and it's likely that somebody at the visitor center would give directions to the visitor on how to get to Carnton from, like, just word of mouth. But would there be any concerns about not having any signs in downtown that specifically lead somebody?
Not in like directly in downtown. Like if we're typically what our information specialists tell people is to take Columbia. So to get out to Carnton, because that's the safest way to go and pretty direct. So I would say, is there, and I can't remember, is there a sign currently on Columbia Pike for Carnton at all?
Yes.
There is, yeah. So
At what is that, Stall?
is that what that is? Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that we need any additional signage for Carnton.
All right, does that help with that question, guys?
Mhm.
Okay,
This
thank
is
you.
very good discussion, folks.
Right. Steve, do you have any comments?
No, but going down to Columbia with that sign on Stall and hitting Lewisburg, that's a dangerous intersection, to say the very least. I agree about avoiding Margin in Lewisburg. I don't have a problem with Church Street and down.
Mhm.
Okay. And you're right, we're trying to direct everything through Matt Catcher. So, although I do think we need signs of some sort in downtown to Carnton. That's just
Well, there will be on Main Street, certainly, Steve.
Okay.
When we get to there.
Right.
And on Highway 96 coming in from the west, there will be.
Okay.
And Franklin Road, yeah, like what he's saying, Main Street for the folks coming in from Franklin Road. Yeah.
Yeah, and just while we're talking this, the other argument on directing people down Main Street, and then you get a little bogged down. Well, back in olden days when I used to go on trips to historic districts back in January, I kind of welcome that sometimes. I know Harris and I would kind of welcome it because it slowed you down. You kind of got to evaluate where things were. So that doesn't have a total negative side. It's got a good side to it also.
Oh, that's true.
See things. You get to see the buildings. You get to.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember different parts of being in different parts of Sarasota, that if it was, if it got slow because I was going past historic districts, that kind of honestly played to my game plan.
Mhm.
Mary, you do bring up a good point because there's the kind of the psychology side behind supporting retail businesses and getting in view of those retail businesses and restaurants along Main Street supports the retail businesses.
Right. I remember I was saying, oh, look, we've seen that tea room advertised. Would we rather stop there now or do we want to go to Turtle Island and circle back? It gave you chances to think those things. So.
Yeah, if you see the Main Street like that, you're going to want to stop.
Mhm.
You wouldn't.
Yeah. So I just want to say that.
This is very powerful discussion, and I really appreciate the committee on this because I totally agree that I think that not only just excuse me, sorry, not only just following what we've done in the past, but rethinking some of these routes and some of these directions is really powerful. So what a great job everybody's doing.
So my understanding here is on this map, we are going to suggest that the green line that would go to Carter House and to Lotes House, a redirect from Church Street down Main Street to 5 Points and down. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And are we going to keep the blue line that goes to Carton where it is?
Well, you got, I think what Steve said about that one intersection.
Well, we do have, yeah, we are intending to route people on Gnatcatcher, yes. So there, it would be kind of superfluous to have a sign there unless people are coming in from a weird route. I don't want to say weird route, but from a route like on Eddy Lane from north on Eddy Lane or north from Ralston Lane from Liberty. But that would be a very unique case.
Yeah, and I don't know that I think the signage could easily direct people to Carnton by there between Carter's Hill and along Carter's Hill Park,
So the
whatever that
alternative,
street is. I forget the name of that street.
now it would be taking people through residential still, but there's Folk Street here that would take people to Lewisburg, which might be,
That's a dangerous intersection.
that is a very narrow street too. There's also, now I don't know, maybe we should pull up a different map, but there's also Claiborne Street right here.
That's the one I was
Next to
thinking.
Stewart Street, and this is not a safe intersection. I would recommend either. Now there are some signs there, as you can see, but this is where that blinking light is on Lewisburg. So it might not be the best to direct visitor travel if we are going to place new signs or make decisions about relocating signs. Just because something's there now might not be, the best to consider moving forward.
But the committee does believe that the use of South Margin is not a good choice.
It's not ideal.
Not at all.
Yeah.
So the street with the green line, I'm getting so confused. That's Folks
This
Street,
is Church,
Church,
and
And
then
then-
this is Church Continued,
right?
and then
And
this
then
is
Columbia.
Columbia.
And then
and
what's that
this-
one?
This is Folk Street.
Okay,
So this goes over to Lewisburg.
Lewisburg.
So-
So that's
that
where
street that runs by Lotes House, the side of Lotes House. So
Right.
it's a kind of a residential area. There's a couple of commercial uses right behind the Lotes House. But it's pretty narrow road that connects to Lewisburg. So it's an option. The
So
next,
that intersection is the one with the blinking light.
no, this light this is the intersection with the blinking light right here.
I don't think so.
There's no blinking light there. It's just
No.
a stop sign. The blinking light is off of Folks because it has that additional road.
I
That
agree.
comes in.
I can't figure out what that one is.
I can't either, but it comes in, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. You're absolutely
So
right.
then-
I
so then-
apologize.
No, that's okay. And then that stop sign.
This is the curve by the railroad.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Where all those
I'm
in-
so sorry about that. So this is where BG lives. Okay, I get it. Okay, I'm so sorry about that.
So there's
I don't have my glasses on today.
really the problem with Carton is like this Lewisburg is just really difficult. There is no good way or
Mm-mm.
safe way to get there on Lewisburg.
So, right. So this is like I was halfway right in saying this is still narrow, but you are
Yeah.
absolutely right. This is the blinking light. So this is more unsafe, even though it's more direct.
Yeah, so I wonder if maybe any kind of signage that we decide to go with would be best to lead people down Claiborne because it does offer them that stop sign. It's not like the safest, but we are dumping them out where there are additional shops that don't get a lot of visitor traffic regularly. And so we've been sort of trying to figure out how to send people over that way a little bit more. So I wonder if that would be a good way to guide folks to get to Carnton from the downtown or / Columbia Pike area.
Well, the reason to do it, I guess, is that you go through those two battlefield parks.
Yes, that's definitely.
And then you end up at the Collins Farm. The reason not to do it is because my husband and I have a rental house on Claiborne. So that part of me is like, ouch. But no, I get it. I get it.
What we can also do between now and the next wayfinding committee meeting is consult with our engineering department to see if they have any suggestions on best, safest routes to get there so that we can weigh that information as well in this discussion.
I love that idea.
Yeah, Rich and I have talked pretty regularly about the timing to get an engineer in for a full meeting to talk about a number of locations that we've had concerns about. But I think as we've gotten into downtown, it's kind of, we're seeing that there's gonna be a lot of locations where we have to make tough decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Or they get made for us, so.
Right.
But this is definitely an important consideration because to Megan's point, there is a lot of benefit to having it go through here. I mean, there's already the park here.
Right.
And then there's already that park almost immediately at the other end.
Mm-hmm.
This is a little less safe potentially.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I mean, maybe engineering at the G and H signs, maybe engineering has already got some ideas about how to improve that intersection.
That's true.
Because that is the route of the trail as well, isn't it?
There is a, I believe it might go through there. There's the sidewalk improvement project, and I think it might, I'm not sure if it goes quite that far down.
I thought it started at that intersection.
I'll have to, it's been a while since I've looked at it.
Yeah, it's been a while too, but
Do you recall, Kelly, by chance? Okay, I can definitely look into that in the meantime.
Well, all I remember is Folks has some elevation. It not only has the three, that intersection coming together, but the elevation is like you're down low and then, you can't get a good view.
Right.
If you're my height, I guess.
Okay, well, unless anyone has a different opinion, it sounds like we're kind of leaning toward this as the direction, unless we get some alternative direction from our engineers.
Yeah.
yeah, the signage that exists today leads you down Claiborne.
Okay,
Okay.
that makes sense. Okay.
That was very good. Thank you all. Megan, where do people park when they go to the visitor center?
That's a great question, and it really depends. So we do have a 15-minute parking zone in front of the visitor center that's used repeatedly throughout the day. Like they just cycle through.
Okay.
Other folks park on 4th Avenue. And then the majority of folks, well, I shouldn't say the majority. There's a good amount that park in the 4th Street or the 4th Avenue garage.
And so it's basically walking traffic.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
With the exception of those that are coming in for really quick directions and they're utilizing that 15-minute parking zone in the front.
So the parking designation there is somewhat accurate.
Yes.
For you guys.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I wish there were a way, of course, to capture a couple of more spaces
Yeah.
that were like that.
Yeah.
Because one of the exercises that we've talked about is not only directing people to the venue themselves, but to parking for the venue.
Right.
We direct them to the venue from a standpoint of walking traffic, but we direct them to the parking from the standpoint of driving traffic. So, now we can go in and start to talk about each sign, and A is one that we've already addressed. Is that the next place everybody wants to go?
So A is the sign at Eddy Lane and Murfreesboro Road.
Now, we had discussed this before, and the discussion in my notes said that we would revise the A sign to have a right turn for Fort Granger, and then straight ahead for Carter House, Lotes House, Historic District, and then a symbol for the Visitor Center on this sign.
So yeah, I guess I didn't get that. So that's good to know. I think when we last had this conversation, we spent a lot of time, and I think we're still a little uncertain. And what I put on the story map is that we were going to reevaluate. I remember in my notes specifically, it said we're going to need a bigger sign.
Yeah, but I mean, we had said we were going to have people turn right to go to Fort Granger, and the thing that was different here was we were going to designate still the historic district as being straight ahead, and then also identify Carter House and Lotes House, and it would get the visitor center eye on this sign.
So based on our last discussion here in the last 10 minutes, we could eliminate Carton, correct?
We didn't have Carnton on the sign.
That's right.
This
Okay.
particular sign, this particular one.
Okay.
Yeah. Is everybody in agreement with that thinking?
Sorry, Rich, can you repeat what would be listed?
Okay, at the top of the sign was Fort Granger with a right arrow.
Okay.
Under that was Historic District, Carter House, and Lotes House with a straight ahead arrow. And then underneath that would be some kind of symbol for the visitor center with a straight ahead arrow.
Okay.
We've always talked about the visitor center having its own eye
Right.
with an arrow under it.
And just so you guys know, on the story map, when I send the link, I don't put an I for anything. I just put visitor center because it's something we're still talking about. If I were just to put an I on there, I think it'd be confusing right now. So I just put visitor center. I also use carrots instead of trying to do arrows. So if you see a carrot pointing right, that's a right. That's meant to be a right arrow, etc. So.
Okay.
But please check my work.
Now, we've got to think about both sides of the street. And so coming out of downtown, and that's the B sign, there is a sign as you're heading east, it's the B designation there. There's a sign as you're heading east on Highway 96 that points people to turn left to Fort Granger. We haven't discussed this, but I would think that we would just have a sign there that just said Fort Granger left turn. The previous sign had the factory on it as well.
Does anyone have any different opinions on that?
Okay. As we get to the river, there is a sign off to the right, and it's one of our newer design signs. Off to the right, it's the C designation that, if you go down, it says Carnton Plantation left, City Hall downtown straight, and then underneath it, Visitor Center straight. I've thought that either we remove this sign altogether or it needs to be completely reworked.
Where is that sitting right now?
So I'm gonna go back. It's right at the river, right before you cross the river going into downtown from Murfreesboro Road. It's actually one of the better looking as far as the how the wear and tear is gone on one of the newer signs. So if you're driving into downtown, be sure to take a look at it just for reference for when we talk about aesthetics later on. Some of them hadn't worn as well, especially even of this type. You can see we added Visitor Center afterward, so that's on there. So Rich is suggesting that this one would need to be removed or reworked.
Well, especially now that we're not going to have people turn left to go to Carnton.
That's true. Now, we haven't talked about including City Hall on anything, but now that we're getting into downtown, it might be an opportunity to think about that. It's not a historic site, obviously, but the Visitor Center is not either. I don't know if we got to kind of think about what the board might want. And I know that the board, when we talked about this, giving an update, Rachel and Rich gave an update to, and Pam gave an update to the board late last year. One of the aldermen mentioned wanting to have more designations for public restrooms. So, you know, there might be some requests that aren't specific to historic sites that we could incorporate into this program, and maybe having City Hall and with a note for public restrooms on it occasionally wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to help with that consideration.
I like
The
that.
other thing we need to keep in mind here, with the earlier discussion that we've had, sign C, D, and I will be completely changed, and possibly because all of those C dealt with turning left to go to Carnton. D is strictly a sign that says go left to go to Carnton. And I is strictly a sign that says go left to go to Carter House. So C, D, and I will be gone.
Now go ahead and show you guys those. C, D, and I is just this guy
Yeah,
down here, not the whole thing.
yeah, right.
I'd love to do something about the whole thing, but
I'm not going to go there. So bear in mind that Eddie Lane is the last time people see a sign before they get to this downtown core. So I think we need some kind of reinforcing sign somewhere along this corridor that people are on the right trail and you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe C is the right location for that sign, but it's just reworked.
That's a good point. I personally feel like when I'm about at the point of Pinkerton, I feel like I'm getting into a different place. Like it feels like you're transitioning. Murfreesboro Road is very residential up until this point, and then you're feeling like, okay, I'm transitioning into something new. You really feel that at the park. You really feel that at the river. The road is starting to narrow. The speed limit is starting to, lessen as a result of that. Like you feel like that you're traveling into somewhere special. So,
Well, the other side of that also is at C, at that location. You're not dealing with traffic lights and congestion and everything else. You're still, so there's a better chance of somebody being able to glance at a sign and understand it than if you start to put it more down to where the D location or the I location are. And because people are dealing with, okay, I got a left turn traffic, I got right turn, I got to go straight, you know, and they're dealing with a lot more congestion. So I think C is a good location. It's just, we have to rework a sign there.
now, Bob, you're very familiar with this corridor for obvious reasons. How do you feel about it?
Well, you know, I think clearly it needs to change at this point. I agree with you, Amanda. It does feel like a transition. You know, I think what we have to be careful about is, you know, signs that appear where there isn't any natural stopping point become a little bit more difficult to read, right? And so that's kind of at an area that's past one traffic light on Eddy Lane and before the next traffic light on Margin. So I think that's just maybe a guiding principle we ought to be thinking about, is because everywhere else it seems we've got them pretty much close to a stopping point. So, and I would also say we probably do need to get some parameters on what we think the city would want with respect to City Hall, public restrooms, and what, if anything, we want to be saying, because if we do it there, you're probably going to need to do it from other places as well.
Right.
And there may be some, I just don't recall. I've seen that sign because I pass it all the time. I don't recall seeing other signs that may be there that also reflect City Hall, or
I don't think that.
And I haven't seen anything that reflects public restrooms that I can remember.
There's only one sign that I'm aware of that says public restrooms, and it's literally right in front of City Hall and 3rd Avenue.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's not a street sign as much as a pedestrian sign.
Right. So, you know, before we can make that call, I think and I don't know if it's worth asking questions before we try to speculate whether we should include or not include. I mean, I can understand the rationale for doing it, but then if we take that on, we're going to need to put it coming in from other directions as well.
Good point.
Well, you all know there is potential moving forward for a new City Hall to be constructed. So there is there will be a desire at some point to try to point out City Hall even more so than we would want to do already.
You know, and then the opens the question.
More proud of it. Yeah. I'm sorry.
It also opens the question that if you include City Hall, do you include the Williamson County Courthouse? Then do we go to the public library? You know, and where does that, and where do we draw the line on those as well?
That's a very good point. It's a very good point. And you include more, there's more potential to leave things out. It gets kind of scary, but.
Well, I can remember in my years downtown, the first question you get asked by anybody on the street is, where is there a restroom?
You're never going to be penalized in any way for including where a restroom is. I'll tell you that. So I understand entirely where Rich is coming from when he pointed out that, you know, when you get to D&I, there's a lot of congestion. You might be thinking about other things. And to Bob's point, people might miss that sign. As you know, Megan even asked where the sign was because it's easy to pass. It's easy to pass. I know it because I, you know, asked for it to be installed there. So it may be that we kind of try to consider, well, maybe we need a sign in that vicinity, but maybe not that exact location. Those are all really good points. And what would we want it to say? Maybe we don't have the answers for that quite yet, but and we don't have to at this point.
Well, and something to keep in mind too, and maybe where you were thinking about it, Amanda, that, you know, that junction at Margin, even people that are coming in all the time, it's it really becomes a kind of a late choice on am I in the left lane or the right lane?
Mhm.
Because the left lane becomes only a left turn lane at that point, right? And it's a 2-lane road, 2-lane, one way coming in up through the railroad tracks anyway.
Right.
You know, and then left is only left-hand turn. So that's something to be thinking about in terms of placement of anything as well.
Or you stay in the left lane just to pass everyone else until you can jump back into the right lane.
Yeah, or what I see happening.
I don't do that. I'm not a speeder. I really don't like speeding, but
No, but what I actually see more commonly is people are in the left lane because you have this presumption that 2 lanes continue. And by the time, right after you pass the railroad tracks, now you're stuck. If I don't want to go left, I've got to get in the right lane within that couple hundred feet that are there. And so I think that's a traffic engineering question along that whole area right there is a question for traffic anyway.
right. No, that's definitely, I think we've all seen that happen several times.
Okay. Well, we can certainly table this and talk about and allow everybody, allow staff to go through and talk to traffic about some specifics here. And then we can come back and address signs along this corridor. I have one question before we adjourn, and that would be directions to the Masonic Hall. Now, if we're leading everyone down to the square, would it be everybody's thoughts that at the square, we direct people to the right to go to Masonic Hall and not at Church Street? Or would you rather have them turn right on Church Street to go to the Masonic Hall?
Well, this is Bob. My opinion is I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to have arrows going both ways. Because if you think about it from a merchant's perspective, you turn right on Church Street, you're going to go past the 202 gallery. And if you turn right after that, you're going down to the antique shops. So it's not a bad turn. And so maybe having a arrow straight and an arrow right could go either way.
Because if you wait to turn, it throws you on the side of getting in the parking garage across from the Masonic Hall.
Right.
If you turn on Church, it makes it difficult. Isn't that right? I think.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So would it be a bad thing to have 2 arrows, either right or straight?
That's our only national landmark. So individually listed national landmark. So I think it would make sense.
Pam, Steve, do we still have you guys? I can't see everyone.
Pam had to leave the meeting.
Steve, you still there?
I hope we can adjourn.
Well, I was wondering what Steve thought. It looks like he's dropped off. He has a business that would run the other direction, of course, and I think that it would be beneficial for the businesses on Main, of course, and the businesses on Second to have an arrow go both ways. As I don't know if it'd be confusing for the public that way, but
I'm not a big
because
fan
they
of-
don't have to go around the roundabout. I don't know that. I would think that would be an issue as long as it's really clear once you approach the roundabout that you make the first right.
I'm not a big fan of an arrow that points 2 different directions.
Yeah.
To me, when I drive up to that, I go, what does that mean? But
No, we're not saying that.
well, but what I'm saying is we could have an arrow right at Church Street and then have another arrow right at Main Street.
Oh, okay.
And that-
I didn't get that. I'm sorry.
That's what I thought. And the second one could also say parking.
Mm-hmm.
So Bob was suggesting that you have a sign that says right at Church, and then you have a sign that says right at the roundabout. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I would rework
actually,
this
I
math.
wasn't, but
Okay. So I did understand it the way. Okay. Okay.
So
But
I,
that's what
yeah,
you meant
no,
to
no,
say.
I think it's fine that way. The only thing I would caution us against is, there are some businesses on the periphery like 202 Gallery and those antique shops. So, if you're trying to get to the Masonic Hall and you go down when you get to that roundabout, if you don't know the area, it's going to be hard for anybody to look at signs near that roundabout because there's so many moving parts. And then two, if you do take that trek, you're never going to get to the other side of it. So just a thought, and we just need to think consciously about, are we okay with that?
Yeah, I'm thinking we route them two different ways, but we don't have an arrow going right and straight at the same spot. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking what Rich is thinking.
And I'm fine with that.
And I think we're all about brain dead right at this point.
Yeah, I'll revise this before the next meeting, and then maybe I'll tackle another route so we can kind of talk. I like our big discussion in the beginning where we talked about just general routes and that type of thing. But but we've had a really progressive and productive meeting today, so this is very good.
You guys have been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for allowing us to debut the story map, and I'll be sending out the link to everyone. Feel free to send me any questions, comments, concerns about the content. It's all very editable, nothing set in stone, of course. And
there are a couple things to think about, if everyone will, before I ask for a motion to adjourn. One is, think about terminology, as we talked in the beginning of the meeting about ancillary versus another term. That's not going to be publicly noted that this is an ancillary site and that type of thing. And this is just for our discussion basically, but it is a public meeting. So we certainly don't want to offend anyone or give an insinuation that something isn't as important. It was more along the line of a general thing of how to get people in certain directions. So if you've got an idea on another term, that would be great. The second thing was, if you will, be thinking about signs as we think about the location of C versus D and what we would best have on those signs and the best location for them. And we'll start the discussion at the next meeting on that, if everyone will.
And Rich, were you going to try to find out when we need to bring in engineering?
I've got a couple of thoughts on that, Mary.
Okay.
I think it's important right now for staff to go back to engineering and ask them specifically about the route from Carter House to Carnton.
Okay.
And then I'd like to, just so we have some direction, but be very specific. My thoughts have been that where we don't have engineering for a while yet, maybe another couple months, to get through a little more discussion downtown.
That makes sense.
And that.
so we'll probably have a lot more questions for engineering that we can compile.
So if everybody's in agreement with that, we have just enough members to adjourn. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Bob?
Second.
Mary? Okay, let me do a roll call. Steve is absent. Rachel, absent. Pam is absent. Mary Pierce?
Here.
Bob?
Here.
Megan?
Here.
And I. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank
This
you.
has been very
Great meeting.
productive.
It's hard work.
Yes,
Bye.
thank you so much for your time.
So, hey guys, I know we just lost Mary, but just wanted to let you know this is probably our last virtual meeting. Well, next time we meet might be in person. The governor has not indicated that he plans to extend the ability for commissions to have full commission virtual meetings. So we will keep you abreast of that situation, but I'm not sure if there is potential for a quasi meeting where there's like some people virtual and some people in person or not, but we'll definitely let you know. But it's been fun. It's been a learning curve for everybody, but I've really enjoyed it. And hopefully, if we are in person, I just want to assure you that, you know, staff will do everything possible to make sure that you are all feeling as safe as possible here together. So just keep us updated on what would make you feel comfortable coming into City Hall and meeting, and we'll do our
Thank
best to
you.
accommodate that.
Yeah, the one thing I would suggest, Amanda, is that we do try make every effort to have a combination for those people who may not still feel comfortable meeting in person. So doing a group that's there around a table, but then also zooming in for others.
Unfortunately, we are tied to state law requirements, and so we can only do what's permitted by the governor as far as virtual meeting or any sort of lack of presence of, you know, people in person. So we'll accommodate any way we can as far as the state will allow us to do that. But as far as we know right now, every meeting can be virtual through the end of June, but as of July 1st, they would need to be in person.
Yeah, I would just press on that. You're still going to have a lot of people that aren't going to be comfortable doing that.
I understand.
And I would, you know, other businesses have figured out a way to do both.
Yeah. Well, I definitely understand and feel you for sure.
Okay. This committee has been really productive
Yeah.
in this downtime.
Well,
Appreciate
thank
that.
you for your leadership, Rich.
Well,
Thanks,
thank
Rich.
you.
All right.
Everyone, be safe.
All right. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye.